Really excited to present to you a conversation today. We've got Daniel Lawson and James Lee, and we're going to be talking about enhancing care for the aging with cleaning and disinfecting technology. And first up, I'd like to introduce Daniel. He is our co-founder and the president of business affairs here at Viking Pure Solutions. Welcome, Dan. And we've also got James Lee, and he is the CEO and co-founder at Bella Groves, which is a memory care facility near San Antonio, Texas. Welcome, James.
Hi, good morning.
And now let's jump in first with James. So Bella Groves is a newer establishment, and it was opened just last year, right?
Yeah, 1 year ago. We just celebrated in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Bella Groves, your community, and what makes it so special? I really want to focus in on the joy and the, love is greater than dementia kind of aspect that you guys have playing with.
Yeah, Narelle, it's always hard to summarize kind of a passion project, in a short, concise way. But Bella Groves, what we are is an education company. We're a dementia education company specifically, and what we want to do is try to help families that are going through this caregiving journey on their own. And sometimes that's later in the process, like when they need a dementia care facility, like we have. And sometimes that's in the very beginning when they are thinking about a diagnosis that just happened or signs that there may be something going on. So our company is meant to help everybody in that journey, not just the people looking for residential care.
Awesome. Okay. And now, Dan, I know that Viking Pure has served the senior care industry for pretty much since, our inception, the beginning. Can you shed some light on our system and maybe how you connected with James in the first place and where this relationship got started?
Yeah. So just thanks for everybody, for making time, to spend this with us today. It's awesome to have these collaborative conversations. James and I have known each other now for, I guess, almost 2 years. It's hard to believe. And what I've learned, kind of in serving the senior living space, over the last 7 or 8 years is that although it's a tremendously large industry and there's a lot of players, in the space, it's very small in its familial type of relationships, and although there's a lot of people, we see a lot of the same faces at meetings and conferences and on podiums, and James and I have just frankly had an opportunity to share space in some of these different conventions. We met about 2 years ago in Nashville. And since then have just cultivated a nice relationship, both professionally as well as personally. Learning about each respective's interests and not only entrepreneurialism, but also servitude, specifically as it pertains to a portion of our population. I think that that often gets I think neglected and kind of forgotten. I became very passionate about what James was doing from a service perspective with patients, or not patients, but residents that are suffering from memory disorder, and we look to just align with those who are obviously trying to make a difference, and James is doing an amazing job of that through Bella Groves.
Awesome. So we installed a generator at the Bella Groves community. What was it, like almost a year ago as well?
Pretty much. Yeah, right from the beginning.
Awesome.
Man, that's hard to believe. I didn't realize it's been that long.
It's pretty close. Yeah, I know we opened in May without it, and I think it was a couple months after that we, so we need to figure out what the actual anniversary date is.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
I mean, for the benefit of the audience, just to kind of give them a little bit more of an idea of what that means. When Narelle, obviously describes a machine, she's describing the type of technology that we manufacture at Viking Pure, and what we do. Very kind of, I think it's simple, but we create a machine that has a proprietary way of combining water, salt, and electricity together to create hospital grade cleaning and disinfecting agents. And our mission in memory care settings, senior living settings, and even beyond into a multitude of different industries, is to remove toxic chemicals from the environment. We're very passionate about, much like James is education, and helping people understand the dangers and the risks associated with using traditional chemicals, and quite frankly the inefficiencies associated with using traditional chemicals. And our goal is to enlighten the population in general to this concept of what we call electrolyzed water. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more as far as our conversation is concerned today. But because of the the special environment that James has cultivated within Bella Groves, and the engagement that he maintains with his residents, with his team members, he saw an opportunity to create, I think, a safer space, not just for those that are residing within Bella Groves, but also those that are serving in the way that James is supporting his residents and their family members, and removing toxic chemicals from the equation benefits a tremendous amount of not just role players but residents in the environment, if you will, as a whole. So James saw the I think the benefit, made it a part of the fabric of kind of what makes Bella Groves special, and has just done an amazing job of kind of allowing his culture to continue to provide this unparalleled I think safety experience for all of those that come in and out of his community.
For sure. James, digging into that a little bit more, what were some of the specific challenges with cleaning and disinfection in Bella Groves in the memory care environment? And what were some of the top priorities that you had when you were considering the Viking Pure system?
Yeah, when I met Dan and started hearing about the Viking Pure solution, I mean, it immediately became something in my mind that I thought, okay, we got to have this as part of what we're doing. Um, my experience in senior care, I'm about 15 years into 16 now into this industry. Started as a caregiver, and I've been in just about every community role. So I've seen the effect of cleaning, both from a caregiver perspective, asking, being the person doing the cleaning, to an executive director, managing supplies and risks also associated with harmful chemicals. In particular, in dementia care, I think it's a sad occurrence, and unfortunately, it happens frequently enough that most people will be familiar with the story. That there's a lot of tough ways to go, but ingesting harmful liquids in a dementia care community should not be one of them. And so, we've effectively removed that risk from our community. And it's not also just about removing risk. It's part of our methodology here at Bella Groves is to see the person as a whole person, not just their disease and their diagnosis. So what tends to happen in a dementia care community is that residents are treated with kid gloves almost, and like you remove every harmful thing within their proximity. And I'm talking down to like steak knives when they're being served steaks. There's just this thought that like treat them like a 4-year-old child who isn't aware of dangers, and so let's take it away. And I think there are some things that are reasonable, like harmful chemicals. That's a reasonable risk to remove from the environment. And for us, like putting a steak knife on the dinner table when we're serving steak is an acceptable level of risk. But here's the thing about cleaning supplies in particular. Um, when you are taking like cleaning agents, and caregivers will leave it on the counter. Something happens, they're cleaning, a resident has a fall. The last thing they're going to think to do is, well, let me go lock this thing away and then go address the resident's needs. Human instinct takes over. I'm going to go help the person that's calling out for help. And so we have those situations that happen at Bella Groves, but we don't have the kind of unfair decision to make about, like, should I go lock up this cleaning supply or take care of my resident? You can actually just do both at the same time. And in addition to that, some of our residents actually use the Viking Pure solution to help clean the community, which is
Love
another
that.
part of our methodology that the more you do for people instead of with people, you take some of their humanity away. And I think it's an incredible thing when residents are asked to come in and help, cook. Residents are setting the table. Residents are cleaning up after themselves. And it may seem like a small thing, but when you add all of those small things back into the mix, you see people who feel more confident and more capable. So I know for a lot of people, it seems odd to make a correlation between non toxic cleaning chemicals and a dementia methodology about looking at people and treating them as a whole person. But to me, the connection is pretty clear.
James, would you mind articulating a little bit more about, kind of your methodology at Bella Groves, and how you maintain these activities of daily living, with your residents, as they're kind of transitioning and obviously suffering, from this degenerative disease. What does a day, in Bella Groves look like for your residents? And,
Yeah, if you let me, I would make this like a 2 hour conversation about Bella Groves because there's a lot to unpack. But the short of it, Dan, is that I think our industry, for all the good that we do and the good that we attempt to do, I think that we inadvertently, through all our helping, we further disable people with cognitive impairments. And so our methodology at Bella Groves is really about, so we're a small environment. We have 16 residents in each of our two homes. And then we increased our staffing a dramatic amount above the industry average. So we have one caregiver for every four residents who reside at Bella Groves, compared to a 1 to 8, 1 to 12, or sometimes worse ratio in other facilities. So the intent of what we're trying to do is we're teaching our caregivers approach methodology. We focus on educating our caregivers, and we trust that through that education they will become better care partners. And so if somebody treats, for example, in most care facilities, if you have a resident who is quote unquote exit seeking, we label them with these behaviors. They're the exit seeker. At most memory care facilities, caregivers are just taught redirect that person. Oh, Mr. Daniel likes to go to the, he tags the doors or he's exit seeking. Redirect him, distract him, tell him some other thing to focus his energy somewhere else. And I think it is as simple as trying to think about, well, what is motivating that person's action? Why are they going to the door? There's some motivating factor there. And rather than distracting them from it, find out more about it. And so oftentimes, when that scenario happens at Bella Groves, we will actually just go with the resident, literally go with the resident. So this happened last week. A resident said, I don't know where I park my truck. And at most places, they would have said, well, your daughter has your truck, or don't worry about that. Let's go listen to music. But that person wants to know where his truck is. So our caregiver, not me, a caregiver said, well, let me help you go look for your truck. So she opened the door, she let her teammates know she was going, and she walked the resident around to go look for his truck. It sounds simple, but it really is profound when you think about how little this stuff is actually done. And about halfway through the walk, the resident said, boy, he used more colorful language. It's hot out here. Let's go back inside. And so he felt reassured by the fact that his caregiver believed his need, went with it, and then he himself decided, you know what, it's not worth it, let's go back inside. And so we achieved the intended outcome, which was to help him feel reassured and feel safe and not, be going to the door, but his humanity, his autonomy, respect for him as a person, all remained intact during that interaction. And so if you take that and multiply it by 100 interactions a day, it's the cumulative effect of being treated like a person that makes people who are living with dementia not suffer from dementia.
yeah, no, that's really interesting. I guess I kind of I relate that to, wanting to live in a clean environment, right? And sometimes, being in an environment, you feel the even in a hotel, right? When you know that there is a staff and kind of a service associated with, ensuring that that you have a clean space to kind of lay your head at night. Sometimes you feel um, yourself kind of, wanting it to be cleaner, right? You still want to kind of wipe, the remote off, or
Yeah.
maybe like, a table. I would assume your residents, maybe feel the same way sometimes. And although it's a beautiful environment, the room is clean, like they just want to have that self assurance, right? That certain things are being done, and I guess you can kind of safely put product in their hands that gives them that confidence.
Yeah, it's a thing that if you think about the lives of seniors, this generation of seniors, why do they clean? It's not even just for their own selves. They clean in service of their loved ones, right? I'm cleaning the table so that my family can have a clean place to sit and eat. So when you think about all of these things, is when we remove these tasks and call them conveniences, you stop to really consider what's the motivating, factor in the first place, which is I'm cleaning because it's a show of love to the people around me. And so it's not, it's not as superficial as giving residents something to do as others might think. It really is about understanding how does the person contribute to their own social environment. And and Viking Pure gives us a very unique way for us to do that.
That's awesome. Wow, man. That's I don't know about you, Norel, but that like really tugs at my heartstrings.
Oh,
I love hearing that.
it needs
I
to be
love
the
hearing that.
standard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dan,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about the toxicity and the safety of the Viking Pure solutions and electrolyzed water? I know you kind of talked a bit about how it's made.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, look, um, we've been, kind of misled, right, as a society, in regard to, the profile or the desired profile, if you will, of the different types of chemicals that we allow into our lives, to create clean and safe environments. It's kind of like an ultimate contradiction. If you ask me, it's not uncommon, right, to look on a label, to see certain hazards, associated, or potential hazards, right, when using product. We see don't get it in your eyes, right, or don't get it on your skin, or don't breathe it in, or allow it to kind of linger in an area where you're expecting people. Um, like why? Why does a
Yeah.
product have to be kind of described that way? And I think that we expect a product to have a certain level of toxicity because we're relying on it to kill something, right? We're relying on it to kill a germ that can potentially make us sick. So we want to treat that with something that is going to be effective without really considering the effects, both from a short-term perspective and then from a long-term perspective, that they have on us as users of those products. So we are dedicated at Viking Pure to just like raising the flag or the alarm, associated with that, and hopefully being able to provide enlightenment, to a technology, right, or a solution that is as equal or if not more effective, at killing these germs, without possessing, the toxic profile that we've all kind of like come to expect. So for me, it's so gratifying, to sit with a team of frontline workers, maybe in a hospital or a senior living community, or even in a school, right, and discuss these technologies called electrolyzed water, which yes, has significant believability issues when we talk about, like, creating solutions with simple ingredients like water and salt, and those products having the effectiveness that you would expect from, like a Clorox bleach, right, or some other name brand chemical. I get it. Like, I had the believability issues with this technology when I first heard about it, and still to this day, like, just kind of pinch myself when, when I see this just amazing accumulation of efficacy data, that the product is able to accumulate. But the most gratifying thing is when we can sit with team members, who are going through this paradigm shift, away from using more traditional chemicals with the odors and the handling characteristics and the colors and all of these different things, and speaking to them about electrolyzed water and then kind of the Viking Pure solutions, and hearing from them sometimes for the first time that they've ever verbalized, right, challenges that they experience daily. I was in a hospital last week, and this woman there has been working there for 15 years. We're using these chemicals. Halfway through our presentation, she raises her hand and she's like, every time I come in the morning and I open the cap on our disinfectant, my nose starts running, and it runs until I close the cap, at the end of the shift. 8 hours later, I go home, I come back, and the next day it starts back up again. She's like, I've never really thought about what that may mean, right, long term. And for her, to have been enlightened, right, like to this, this new type of technology that isn't going to cause that, reaction, is just like, it's like motivating, for her. So it's encouraging to kind of see now the technology come into her hands, and she'll get better outcomes, right? Because now she's feeling confident about her health. She's feeling confident about the products that she's using, and she wants to, she wants to use the product. And I just think, like, when we continue to bring more awareness, to a lot of these challenges, a lot of these preconceived notions, and I think the long-term effects, we're going to continue to open eyes. And I think it's just so important that we continue to emphasize, our efforts, in these frontline workers, because frankly, many of those, who we work with from more of like the business side of things, right? Like those that are signing the contracts, wearing the suits, at the corporate level, they're not cleaning, right? They're not picking these products every day and engaging in the challenges associated with using, chemicals. So there's a level of separation there. So to sit and to work with the frontline workers, to hear their feedback, and to see the change happen with them, is just amazingly gratifying. And I think it works its way up the ladder there, because that corporate suit wants to see satisfaction from their frontline workers, knowing that they're going to be able to achieve what they need to achieve to create a safe environment, obviously with safe product. So,
For sure.
yeah.
And speaking to that efficacy side, because you want a product that is non-toxic and safe, and that's all well and good, but it has to work. So for Viking Pure and our solutions, can you speak a little bit to our certifications and kind of where
Yeah,
it's kind of
definitely.
starts testing?
I mean, James, you want your environment to be green, but you want it to be clean even more, right?
We definitely
It's
want it to be clean. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the priority. I mean, I'll never forget sitting with a few of our very first decision makers, and it's like, man, this all sounds fine and good, but when it comes down to it, we we need a clean environment and an infection-free environment, right? So is your product going to be able to meet our efficacy demands? And yes, so when it comes to discussing the simplicity of on-site generation, and the limited ingredients, and the safety profile, efficacy is always on the top of mind, from a user's perspective. And typically we lead with efficacy, and we can do that because our product, again, although simple and safe, has met the highest levels of EPA regulation and credentialing. Considered a hospital grade disinfectant. The product has gone through rigorous testing against hundreds of microbes to be able to make these claims. Think of it very much like selling a pharmaceutical or a medical device, right? Like I can't say that it can do something unless it's been tested and validated from these third party groups like the EPA. So we're very proud, to be able to show these regulatory credentials. It's not too uncommon that a state official may come into a senior living community like Bella Groves after we've been implemented. They've never heard of the product before, and yeah, they have questions. But as soon as as a user, as a customer, right, James, you show them the EPA registration number, they have no more questions because they can then search, review our label and all of our claims, et cetera. But to take it one step further and really, offer I think kind of more of a full package consulting, educational opportunity for our customers. Our goal is to not just be a chemical supplier, right? Our goal is to be a partner of the community and to offer opportunities for improvements in infection prevention across the board. So for us, what's been, a very important, I think, endeavor over the last, year or two is the creation of not just our Viking Pure Academy and our opportunity for continued education, but our antimicrobial certification program, which really, is an incentive, that is aimed at education across the board throughout an entire community. Obviously, we focus all of our training and usage education with frontline workers, environmental service staff, housekeeping, and the dietary team who actually are using the products. But in order to be antimicrobially certified at a community level, we need to extend that education to all leadership roles like the executive director, nursing director, you name it. And our goal in doing that is to, one, remind, obviously, the community members that even though they may not clean every day as part of their job, the chemicals that are used in the community do certainly affect them. And they should be educated on why, a community like Bella Groves has decided to, to invest in a service like what Viking Pure, offers. But we also want to, we want to give the community another feather in their cap, right, as a point of difference and kind of driving why, Bella Groves, for example, is the ideal, home, for their loved one because of all of these other, benefits. In addition, we take resident safety and infection prevention extremely seriously, and can assure, obviously family members and the resident that y'all are doing everything that you can to create a safe environment. Would you agree with that, James?
Yeah, it's the spirit of partnership is that we trust in it, having conversations with you and your team that all of those uh, the scientific tests, the third party testing, all of that is done. So, fortunately, I don't have to understand all the deep science. Daniel understands all of the science, but in that trusting partnership, we can validate from our end as users that uh, you know knock on wood, but I don't think it has much to do with luck as it does, just good processes. Anytime we've had, the flu or a COVID case or something that normally would be a pretty big scare for a small residential facility, the spread is mitigated, the longevity is mitigated. We've seen it. We can attest to the fact that, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's shorter and it's less severe. And I think that at the end of the day is, from an operating perspective as a senior living provider, that's really all that matters. Is that those things are taken care of. And Daniel, you were saying something a little earlier that made me think about this is a very philosophical conversation. You and I just always tend to go there. We could be talking about steak seasoning as we did before, and it turns into a philosophical conversation. But you said something that it hadn't occurred to me before, that your organization and our organization has something very, very much in common. And when you were talking about cleaning chemicals, that we as a consumer base, we really have been misled to think that if it smells like lemon or pine or some added smell makes it clean, and that it hadn't occurred to me all those labels you see on a bottle about don't drink it, don't spray it in your eye, if you get it on your skin, call somebody. And you're thinking about, wow, all of these things are in such close proximity to us that and could be harmful that they have to put it on the label. Made me think about it, in the service of good, how many people actually create harm. And I think about in dementia care, a lot of people have this, that in the service of good, they actually do harm. They're trying to take care of people, but in their methodology of doing that, they further disable them, they further label them, they further create this box around people that you can't do for yourself, so let us do it for you.
Mm.
And so if we can have conversations like this, if we can educate people about, it doesn't have to smell like lemon to be clean. It doesn't have to, scream like safety precaution to be safe. Uh, I think that's really the change here, right? That we're after. And by the way, on the last thing I note about smell, we have so many people who walk into our community, and literally the first thing they say to us is, "It smells so clean in here." And then I ask them the question, well, "What does it smell like?" And they're like, "It doesn't smell like anything."
Yeah.
Like,
Clean doesn't have a smell.
aha, yeah, and I want to make sure you guys hear that, because it's such a satisfying thing, because they say that all the time. It either there's no smell or it smells like food because we're cooking all the time.
That's good too.
That's it. It's those two things.
Interestingly, man, when we are introducing our technology for the first time, odor, is always a topic of conversation, managing odor.
Yep.
And I get it. It's a tough challenge, right? It's something that you're battling, almost proactively, in your communities as opposed to reactively, because it's going to happen, right? You've got residents with incontinence challenges. They're going to spill food. They're going to leave food in areas that you wouldn't think they would normally, and it's going to stink, as a result of it. I've seen some really interesting things, being in some of these communities. And, it's interesting, like when you speak to, the consumers of more traditional products, and they're looking for that, like that sensation, right? That experience of clean, right? Using a product and having an experience associated with it, with this odor that gives you this, this sense of clean, even though it's minimal and is temporary, right? Like, because as soon as the kind of the fragrance goes away, you've got that, that persistent, whatever, the odor may be. What I always try to tell consumers is, if you want to control odor, you've got to remove the source, of that odor, or it's going to continue. And quite frankly, the more traditional products that we use let us down a lot in these types of, situations, and instead rely on fragrances to mask, for a period of time, maybe until the next kind of cleaning cycle, if you will. And that's just not effective. It's unfortunate, but the truth is, additives like fragrances and soaps and colors and all of these different things that are put inside of these chemicals, all they're doing is essentially contributing to what we call biofilm creation, right? Or residue creation on surfaces. And I think the more layman term would be sticky floors, right? Like after you've mopped or wiped, you kind of get this, this tacky sensation on the surface. What that is just buildup of all of these kind of ingredients in these chemicals. And when you contribute to soil load, right, like in the bathroom, or food, kind of in the kitchen, that soil gets kind of trapped, right, in these residues. They're never actually removed, from the surfaces. So when you're talking about combating odor, you're just simply talking about, buildup of soil and residue from previous chemicals that are never actually leaving the surface to allow for this adequate clean. And that's why we're always really passionate about sharing, kind of the ingredient profile of Viking Pure. You're not getting all of these different, additives and products that are going to reside on surfaces and actually cause, sticky sensations and kind of persistent odor. You're getting products that are going to break these residues down and actually remove them from the surface, so that, to your point, the environment doesn't smell like anything, which is what clean, essentially is. And then, to kind of extrapolate on that a little bit more, what you're really not doing is contributing to this, phenomenon of adaptive resistance, that we see with germs. Residues on surfaces, contribute to the development of superbugs, germs that are essentially learning to live with the cleaning agents that we're trying to kill them with. And the more that resides on a surface, yes, it perceives as dirty, perceives as sticky, whatever. but at a microbiological level, you're really contributing to germs that can potentially just make us sick. So we want to get those residues off of surfaces, one, so that we're not consistently chasing our tail, masking them with really fragrant odors, but also give the sensation of a clean environment, which what sounds like your residents and visitors are truly experiencing at Bella Groves.
Yeah, I think our staff actually enjoy the cleaning process because they understand what it does and specifically what it doesn't do, which is that masking, odor. And so it's kind of like it's one of the elephant in the room discussions in senior living is like the smell, right? Everybody, like if I say nursing home smell, you can eat, whether you've spent a day in a nursing home or years in a nursing home, almost everybody can quickly identify what that is. And so, what you said earlier about removing the source of the odor. So let's talk a little dirty for just a couple of minutes here. The odor, right? The odor, the causing odor of a lot of nursing facilities is when people have accidents. Those accidents, you have to think about, well, why do those accidents happen? And if you think about earlier, we talked about staffing ratios. If you have 30 residents living in an environment, and due to their cognitive changes, they become incontinent. Incontinence, if people don't know, is not a loss of like your muscular physiological function. It's a cognitive thing. So it's not because your body's getting frail. It's because your mind is changing. So okay, that means that in a dementia care environment, most people are going to be incontinent. Um, when your staffing level is poor, you just can't get to people quickly enough. You can't be proactive enough. And so that is the accumulated smell of people who are waiting on help. And so in Bella Grove, when we have 16 residents and 4 caregivers on top of managers and cooks and other people who are there, when we can anticipate the needs of our residents and we can help them with, let's say, a schedule, to go into the restroom, it is a lot better for them and for us that they make it to the restroom on time with some simple guidance, rather than waiting for somebody to come help them after the incident has already occurred. Right? So in a lot of facilities, that smell is not the smell of an accident. That's the smell of poor staffing ratio. And so I think when you remove the source here, you're removing the you're removing. Oh, this sounds a little harsh about my own industry, but you're removing the business model that thinks senior care
Yeah.
the way that it is being treated right now. So see, we're always philosophical, but
I've never heard it. I've never heard it verbalized that way, and man, that is just so true. To think it's just if you're limited, there's only so much that you can do, right? And to your point, man, what an amazing value proposition for Bella Groves with your commitment to that kind. I don't want to call it student to teacher ratio, but that's what I think of. When you speak to the caregiver to resident ratio, I guess is how you would articulate that.
yeah, it's having enough people to do the work, and then it's giving them the education and the tools to do the work well. And so, obviously, it's an investment. Like any good thing, investing in a partnership or technology is something you have to think about. But we pay for what we value, and I think as an industry, if we're not willing to pay for this type of stuff, we can't really say that we value it. So, you know, soapbox moment number 4. I don't know. Are we counting soapbox moments?
No one's counting, dude. No.
No. Man, well, looking forward, James, I know you have some plans in the works for increasing independence, especially with people outside of your residence. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit as we close here about how you're leveraging the Viking Peer system with your future goals and growth with Bella Groves?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things I get to talk about. So earlier I said that Bella Groves is a dementia education organization. And if you think about the average length of stay in a dementia care facility, it's about 18 months. If you just ask across the board, most people live in a dementia care facility for 1.5 years. But if you go further back and ask, well, how long has that person lived with dementia? Much, much longer, 10 years, 15 years or more in some cases. So that means doing very basic math here, 1.5 years compared to a 15-year journey, you are getting expert help for 10% of the time that you need that. And worse, you're getting it at the very end. But what we want to do is help people at the very beginning. So helping people to maintain their independence at home, helping caregivers, family caregivers, to understand the disease process of Alzheimer's or the distinction between Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Um, First, you're armed with the knowledge. And then, as things progress, you must be armed with the help and the tools and the supplies. So, ingesting harmful liquids is not just a risk for people in a residential care facility. This is a risk that exists for moms and dads right now in their homes. So, if we can help you remove most, if not all, of the cleaning supplies in your loved one's house, and we could help you replace that with Viking Pure, that's an added service on top of education, right? And so, meals and cleanliness, and when you are gonna retrofit a bathroom with safety handles and things. Those are things that families may not know that they need to do, or even if they do understand that they need to do it, who has the time? Who has the resources to go and find all of that out? So what we want to be able to do through our service called Dementia Navigator is to help caregivers, family caregivers, to navigate the caregiving journey of dementia. So we know that Viking Pure is going to be a part of that. It's almost like part of the care package. That if you work with Bella Groves, you're not just receiving our expert knowledge and care, but oh, by the way, let us make your life a little easier. And here's some better cleaning solution. And it sounds so cheesy, but I use the product myself. I'm sure that makes you guys happy. Uh, my wife and I have, yeah, we've pretty much removed or locked up, all the harmful stuff. And my son, who's almost 2 years old, we keep a little water bottle, a spray bottle of water by the front. So when we're brushing our daughter's hair, we've got a brush and a little spray bottle. And the other day, we had a Viking Pure cleaner on the table, and I turned around and he was spraying it on his head, like because he thought it was the water bottle for spraying hair, and this calm, right, was like, okay, thank God, right, thank God it's that, and not like Clorox or Windex or something else that could have been sitting on the counter. I forgot to call you and tell you about that, Dan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's these moments
That's
where
real life, though.
that is it's real life, and these are things that you know can and do happen all the time in personal homes and care facilities where anybody who is living with dementia could potentially be harmed by these type of things. Let's remove those risks.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Dan, any closing thoughts?
Just so thankful to have this relationship. Very proud of Bella Groves and what you do. Honestly, wish I lived in that area. As my parents continue to age, and I just I really hope that there's I hope more people come to the light, in regard to, the care of a very, delicate, an important, part of our population, come to the light in regard to what you're doing there.
Yeah.
It's just so important, and yeah, man, I just couldn't be a bigger fan of what y'all are doing.
I appreciate that. It's, the feeling's mutual. And I think, the benefit of conversations like this, relationships like this, is that other people are drawn to uh, how they think and believe, right? And I think it just takes a few people to step out a little past that barrier and to say, here's a little different way to do it. and then somebody will come behind us and create a different version or their own version of Bell or their own version of Viking Pure. And I think, neither of our organizations are in the field of let's go dominate our market. It's let's change perspectives about how our market is behaving. And so, yeah, we don't need 1,000 Bella Girls facilities. We just need to do what we do really, really, really well and get the stories out to people like we're doing right now. And I think, my aha moment, one of the things I'm walking away with today is, don't do harm in the pursuit of good. I think that's something that our industry probably, if they heard that phrase, don't do harm in the pursuit of good, they could probably have a lot of self-examination of their own organizations and think, okay, yeah, that's something we need to think through.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if and we're just going to continue, man. From our perspective, our journey is just beginning, and we understand, the growth that the senior living industry is going to experience over the next, 15, 20 years. Our goal, I'm sure, just much like, that with Bella Groves, is to establish standard of care, in regard to, resident and fellow employee safety. And it's been interesting, over the last couple of years to see what are the perceived priorities, of our space. Whether I, agree with them or not. All I know, from Viking Pure's perspective is that we're committed to education, awareness, and to improvements. And I think what truthfully are yesterday's standards. As we continue to reestablish, what non-toxic, really means, and what chemicals really mean. This is something that we're very passionate about, and James, just so happy you're part of the journey with us, my man, with Bella Groves.
Same here. Same here. Let's do this recording. I don't know, once a year at the very so like 15, 20 years from now, we've got all these chapters to look back on together.
Keep the conversation
Can't
going.
wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait, man. Well, thank you, Narelle. Thank you, James, so much for for all of your time today. I look forward to releasing this conversation and hopefully sparking some some awesome conversations with with our friends out there.
Yeah.
For sure. And everyone who's listening in, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation between James and Dan.
Thanks, y'all.